Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of MRX Unplugged, episode 4. Today's is going to be an interesting one. It's going to be about AI, but it's a little bit of a divisive topic, I would say. It's basically, is it AI or market research, or is it AI and market research? We have some wonderful colleagues here that work with me and are pretty knowledgeable about this stuff, way more so than I am. So let's go ahead and introduce everyone here. We have Samir, Dan, and Crystal. Let's go in that order. Give a little blurb about yourself, where your expertise lie, and maybe like a fun fact. Why not? We haven't done one of those yet, so let's do it. All right, go ahead, Samir.
Okay. All right. So I lead AI programs and partnerships at QuestionPro. And before that, I started my own company, which I sold to QuestionPro. And before that, I spent 17 years with a company called Nielsen. So for me, it's market research and AI altogether for sure.
Heck yeah.
Ooh, okay.
Okay, fancy. I like it.
Mhm.
Alrighty, go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, so I'm Dan Fleetwood. I lead the research and insights platforms here at QuestionPro. So work closely with my friend Sumer on a lot of these AI initiatives. And I also think it's AI and market research.
Oh, I didn't know we were choosing. Okay. Hey, guys. Glad you're all joining us today. I'm Crystal Weiss. I'm the Director of Marketing at QuestionPro. And much like Danny, I'm here for color commentary. I guess I'm going to have to choose. And while I would also say it's AI and market research, my experience coming into this industry as an outsider would say there's a lot more people who are ready to fight AI than they are ready to work with it.
Seems to be a common theme.
I'm always the one that's, me and Dan are constantly, Samir, you're not here this is your first time, but Dan and I are I'm always fighting about the market researchers not being innovative enough, and he's always defending them.
I will call them out when they need to be called out, but
show them who's boss. There you go.
Yeah.
So far, nobody has fought me for sure.
Good. That's good. We'll take the wins where we can. Alrighty. Well, I want to start off just kind of explaining to anyone that, has been maybe on the outskirts of AI, may not understand that there's like certain tools that we could use, maybe just haven't quite given a lot of thought to AI and its integrations. So what are some things that maybe some people might want to hold on to, I guess, that are like old methods that, where you guys have seen these kinds of resistances that we can kind of give some credit to in terms of like maybe wanting to hold back on AI a bit. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, Sumer, go ahead.
Did you hear us, Sumer?
Yeah, I got the question. I think what you're trying to say is that there's been a mix of people who have adopted new technologies, and those are people who have not adopted. So is that what you're trying to say?
Yes.
Like,
yeah.
What's going on? I think so there'll be plenty of market research out there about innovation and about adopting innovation, and thank God for market research, through which we know that there are these groups of people who are early adopters or innovators, and there are a group of people who are laggards, right? So there was one that came out not so long ago, and which said that 2.5% of generally people are innovators, about 13 to 14% are early adopters, about 34% are early majors, 34% late early adopters, and then about 16% are kind of laggards, right? So it's not very atypical to see this split, whichever industry, wherever you go. So I don't find market research, and I think we should not hold market research to any different standards. It's pretty standard across, right? So I think it's common that it happens.
Appreciate it. That's good insight. And well, I guess to kind of relate it to one of the other webinars that we did, we talked about surveys and their applications and how we're seeing these kind of like weird merriments between robots that are like in-person / not in-person surveys, with kiosks
Mhm.
and things like that. We also talked about how we might have, vintage ways of doing surveys, which is like in person, pen and pencil, all that good stuff. Do you guys see that having any benefits over maybe something that's purely online, or what are your guys' thoughts on that?
I think it depends on the type of research you're doing. If it's, if it needs to be done in person and that's the way to do it, then I think you could do it. If it's online and you can use AI to help you out, I would say definitely do that. And then just to go back to what you were mentioning before around has AI been adopted, has it not? I also like in the market research world specifically, I've never seen a new technology come out that's caught so much, I would say, interest in this research world than ChatGPT or generative AI or whatever you want to call it. Going like before last year, I mean, it was all the talk was around data quality. Then it really shifted into the talk around AI, generative AI. And now if you go to any market research conference, most of the sessions, most of the presentations, most of the companies will be talking about their AI or their presence in generative AI, what they're getting into the platform. So I've never seen something emerge so quickly. So, and that's being like market research tends to be more laggard than not in terms of adopting new technology. So just the fact that this has caught on that's kind of surprised me a little bit more than other things that have, quote unquote, new in the marketplace. But I think, to go back to your question, it's more around you need to choose the correct methodology, the correct technique based on the data you're trying to collect. That's my view on it.
Ready?
I gotcha. I mean, it's interesting, like with Sumair, with your experience at Nielsen, like, how did they adopt over the 20 or 19 years you were there very quickly, or what? Sorry, you're just like stern. No. We saw the growth of, watching shows on your phone and watching them on Hulu and losing that traditional broadcast feedback that they probably monitored. Do you think that AI is the fastest adoption that you have seen in the insight space, or was there something else that people grabbed onto and then or didn't?
So I think, as Dan said, the market research has been or has typically been a laggard, in adopting new tech. And, Nielsen obviously was kind of have ebbs and flows. So kind of we saw the evolution of the space around us, how fast it was moving. And, we were moving fast in some spaces, but we were not moving fast enough in some spaces. And that did, result in us having to realize that, okay, you know what, we now need to faster, our pace of innovation to be able to catch up. Now, how do we change that, right? How do we figure out where do we need to move fast and where do we need to stay in current with the market? That's the tough question to ask, especially for larger organizations, larger market research organizations. Just because there's a lot of innovation happening, and now pace is just double, triple, quadrupled of innovation. But at the same time, the clients are also expect certain level of trust that they have with these agencies to make sure they are making the right decisions on their behalf. So I think they have the responsibility on them to make those right calls, but at the same time move fast to be able to meet those emerging demands, because nobody's waiting for them, right? The market is shifting, the market is moving. So I can see that the conundrum that they find themselves in, but as Dan also said, that we are seeing a lot of excitement, interest, and exploration from agencies now, market research agencies, to figure out ways in which they can adopt innovation quicker and faster, for sure.
That's really interesting, and I think that's a really great segue for me to kind of ask this question, because it's kind of been on my mind. What are some of the struggles that you guys were kind of finding when AI wasn't as prevalent? Because I know without ChatGPT, coming up with so many concepts and so much content, as a creator, as a one-man team, one-woman show. No, just kidding. It could be kind of tough sometimes. So, what can you guys kind of speak to in regards to that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is people are always looking for ways to, well, I think they should be looking for ways to make their job more efficient. And one of the things that I think researchers spend a lot of time with is trying to analyze all the data that gets collected. And I see like AI or generative AI really helping to accelerate that process. So that's been one of the biggest ways and benefits of it from what I think people were previously doing into how has it, helped them, unlock additional time or whatever you want to call it. I think that's probably the biggest. Another is just with efficiencies and getting things done, like discussion guides or surveys programmed. Those are some big things there. But it's just all about, I think the ones who can adopt the new technology will be more successful than the ones who don't. So I think we're kind of in this big adoption phase right now. And I think, just Samir, you said something interesting in the last question. Didn't want to like cut you off, but I think what was interesting about what you said is the end clients, meaning like the Fortune 500 companies out there, right? They are really looking for agencies or their partners to come up with all the standards and really be I think like the thought leaders in the space. And rather than them coming to you saying, hey, we want to do this, it's more of the vendors out there need to be armed with the information and say, no, company XYZ, you need to do this, and this is what you need to do to stay ahead of the curve. So that's kind of interesting shift, I think, that maybe was there before, but I think is even more heightened because there's still a lot of information that I think everybody needs to absorb and talk about and think about with AI, like sort of like the black box. And I think it's up to the vendors to have that knowledge and be able to educate the company XYZ, which is maybe a real company actually. I'm not really sure, but so those are my thoughts on it. And I know I kind of derailed your question, but hopefully that was helpful.
No, I mean, it actually triggered another question for me that I want to ask Samir. How do you feel like when you're engaging, right? Question Pro, for everybody watching this, we don't talk about Question Pro very much on this show. We're mostly just like talking about shenanigans. But we're a vendor, right? We are trying to create, methodologies and best practices. Do you have, when people come to you and are like, hey, do you use AI? Like, hey, we want these insights faster or something. Do they have a case for how AI should operate in their insights? Or are they coming to you and saying, how should AI operate in our insights? Do they already know?
Yeah.
Or
yeah. No, that's a good question. So I think there's a lot of the issue that happens with something that becomes a buzz, right? It always is, okay, we don't know what it is, but we want it, right? Just
Notice it's true.
We don't know what
yeah. There's an analogy that goes about teenage boys, but I'm not going to say that right now. That about what they think they know, but they don't know. So
don't make Dan blush.
When it's
tell me what I don't know, Samir. No.
Maybe we never know.
That's true.
So I think when we started talking about it, we find that that there are organizations or individuals who are at different stages of the spectrum, right? So the folks who are saying, what, we have a mandate to adopt AI, to do AI. Now you got to give me AI, right? And whatever it is. And then there are people who are saying, okay, we get it, we understand it, we have used it, we know that what is real, what is not real, and we want to really go deeper and have a conversation about what is it that you're going to do, how are you going to build it, how you have built it, how are you going to deploy it, and how is it actually going to affect some of the very important parameters that I have to take care of, right, in terms of privacy, security, and and so forth, reliability, representation, and value. So I'm seeing a whole wide spectrum. I mean, it does not mean that necessarily larger organizations are more mature. It really depends on how individuals within organizations have equipped themselves or enabled themselves to unlearn and relearn about these things, and that's the fascinating part of it, that we And which is what I enjoy the most, is having these kind of conversations with our partners, and and folks who say, okay, let's work together to create something new. And this, I think, is new even in the agency front as well, quite honestly. And in the past, the issue with libraries is that not only that they miss the bus, right, on in terms of being innovative and making more money, being obviously more successful when new something comes out. But the biggest issue and loss in terms of laggards, and if they are as important as bigger agencies, is that you lose the opportunity to define, design the solution itself, right? And make sure that it is meeting the needs of the industry, that you are building opinion, that you're a thought leader owner, right, in that space. So we have been missing that for a long time from these big research agency perspective or big leader perspective in terms of innovation and research, which I hope is going to be different this time around in the age of AI and Gen AI, that we are going to see more agency partners, larger organizations coming on board sooner and actually making sure that it gets designed and defined in the right ways.
I like that. And I think I would really appreciate, maybe giving you a platform to kind of geek out about some of your favorite AI implementations that you've, obviously you've been in this industry for a while now, and not commenting on your age or anything. But I'm just saying, as someone that has, continuously lived and breathed, AI, all this good stuff. What is something that you want to geek out about? I feel like in these kinds of webinars or live shows and things like that, we don't really give an opportunity to just kind of talk about things that we are passionate about, and I feel like that's what we should kind of focus on. So what's something that you would like to kind of just expand upon, I guess, when it comes to AI?
What's the nerdiest thing you've thought about this week, Samir?
Oh my God, there's just so much. There's so many ideas, so many thought process that we are looking into. But I mean, there's always lots and lots of good stuff. Let me kind of take a step back, if I may, right?
Yeah.
Talk about some of
All right, we'll give you
the
permission. You can do it.
two amazing things that companies did before this whole notion of AI as an AI came along, right? And I want to say it because I want to kind of build up, obviously, a point about it. So, obviously, so there is a famous Walmart case study, right, which goes back a few number of years, where they saw that in some of their stores, in some location in the U.S., their I think it was apple pie sales tend to go up, right, suddenly, and then they would stick around for a while, and then it would kind of taper down and normalize. So they wanted to understand really what was happening, and they did. Again, as I said, this was pre this whole AI notion of AI, right? And so they did a big analysis, and they pulled in different kinds of data. And what they found out as a result of it is that wherever there is a forecast of a hurricane, and I don't know who thought of the idea of actually looking at the weather data, but they found out whenever there is a forecast for hurricane, apple pie sales suddenly go up, right? And it shoots up, and then it tapers down when it normalizes, right?
Weird.
So that's cool, right? Exactly.
It's like comfort
The other
food,
example
right? That's
is
the biggest thing.
yeah, right. There is another example of another company who did something, another FMCG company who looked at, something around chocolate. And I cannot say the name of the brand, but it's a chocolate, manufacturer. And they also, this is before, like AI, the whole notion of AI came along in this way, or Gen AI, was that they were looking at somebody manually, probably sitting somewhere, looking at some of the terms that are being used on social media, and based on that, they were able to kind of zone in into which area this is happening, and then based on what some of the words that are being used, they used to stock, overstock certain brands of chocolate in stores in that area, and sales would go up. They were able to realize a significant increase in sales of their brand of chocolate based on the certain things that people were talking about on social media. So I think the reason why I'm saying this is that the need has always been there. And I think this is what Dan was kind of referring to earlier as well.
Mhm.
What drives AI? What is driving the result, or what is driving us to build those solutions or having those conversations is because the need has always existed, right? People in the know that they need something. There is something in there that they, as in their human capacity, would be, it's either very expensive or very difficult to consistently get to that information. And so I think what AI is doing essentially, and what our job is to do is to find out those questions, find out what those problems are that folks have been dealing with for a while. They have figured out one way or the other, but now through different tools, we can actually answer those questions faster and maybe better to a certain extent as well. So I just wanted to kind of highlight AI examples, but do it in a different way.
I think that this is probably the first time I've seen a technology where there's sometimes they build technology and look for the problems.
Mhm.
Blockchain. Like they built blockchain and now they're trying to apply solutions to it. Whereas with AI, there's already problems that AI can apply to them. Not we built AI and now we're looking for solutions.
That makes sense. And you know, this actually unlocked a memory from like my early days when I was
Please tell me
working at
you
a
got apple pie with your hurricane.
no. No. So funny enough, I used to work at a startup when I was in my early 20s. And one of the tasks that I was assigned was to look through the comments of all of our social media posts and essentially use my own brain to kind of figure out what keywords were for negative sentiments, neutral sentiments, and then positive sentiments. And eventually, over time, after some digging around, they were paying for a software that was really expensive. That's called, I think it's called Einstein. And so I went up to them and I was like, hey, you know, instead of me sitting down looking at every single comment and kind of determining what kind of comments were negative or whatever, you guys could literally just train the AI itself. And basically, from the research that I had done, I kind of just programmed it into the Einstein thing. And then instead of it taking me hours to do, it just kind of turned into like a couple of minutes, which was really interesting. And I think it's a real world application that, you know, like you had mentioned, that it's a real solution that exists, and it's not for something that we have to create that problem for, but something that we can, you know, figure out for. But yeah, that was my experience for sure. So let's talk about some of the applications of AI in market research, and then also maybe like some challenges and some opportunities that you guys are excited for these things to kind of expand into. You know, as we've talked about, we want to be like looking towards the future. So I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts?
Dan,
you are like a trailblazer in this. Yeah.
Oh yeah, sure. So I mean, early on, January of 2023, or I guess it was November of 2022, that's when ChatGPT released, like, I think the public version, or you could go on there, and that's when things really started to accelerate. And so at Question Pro, we mentioned this. We're primarily like survey technology. So the first big application where we used generative AI was around automatically creating surveys, right? So you typed in the prompt, what kind of survey you wanted, and it would spit out 10 to 15 questions with demographics, and then your survey was already completed. That was like the first application that we used generative AI for. Previous to that, AI has been around for a number of years, right? It's not anything net new, but the generative component of it was.
Watson has been around over 10 years, and I could not believe that. And I was like, oh,
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Wow.
I mean, just think about like the IBM Watson, and who was the guy, the Jeopardy guy that won all the time, and they put Watson against the Jeopardy guy?
What's his name? Alex something?
Yeah, I forgot.
Yeah. But that was a long time ago, right? And then, so just think about, I mean, essentially how long AI has been around. And now the generative component is good because they've been able to, kind of make that a little bit stronger, obviously, and complete that with a lot of the stuff that OpenAI was doing. So I guess my point is, like, AI is not new, but I think the application of AI in the generative AI realm is newer, and that's what we're really utilizing inside of Question Pro initially, and then I know Samir, you came in and did a lot in the back-end analytics and helping to get there more information and more data collected and analyzed in that regard, not only with some of the Insights Hub or the data repository really, but also with just being able to analyze surveys faster. So I know those are some interesting things that you've done in terms of practical applications of AI.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So at Nielsen, I think what I used to hear a lot from clients was a couple of things, right? First is, and I could see it in front of my eyes, and it was also paid for my breakfast, but still, it was an issue in the sense clients would come back and say, "Can I do this research?" And then we know that they had done something, which can be leveraged again to kind of maybe not exactly answer that question, but something similar or closer, or that they should be, building, the next kind of questionnaire on top of what they've already learned. And we used to guide them, but it was a very manual process. And I think that was a challenge. That was a problem where clients are reinvesting, redoing stuff that they should not be doing, right? And I think we would try to kind of visualize, but it was not that easy. The second thing always was, hey, you know what? Can you tell us very quickly what this research is telling us, right? Something very quickly. Can you tell us something about this research? Like Crystal keeps asking, right? Can you give me something quickly, a quick snippet? And it's important because sometimes, you need to get the answers faster and not have to wait 4 weeks or 5 weeks for the whole cycle to end. So I think there are some very real challenges within the whole ecosystem of end-to-end process of market research, where I think there are very, very obvious and clear opportunities for productivity, for efficiency, and not only that, but also I would say even deeper insight. So in the other conversation that I was having with the client, and they said, it's a very interesting statement, but I loved it. It said, "Can you tell me something that I do not know? Can your AI system inform me what I do not know?" I said, "Okay, first we need to somehow figure out what you know, right?" That in itself is an interesting challenge.
Right.
But you get it, right? So what they're trying to say is like, can you tell me something new, right? Can I dig out something from analysis of different types of data that is different, that can really change the game for this brand, for this product, for this service, and for my customers. So I think those are some very interesting conversations that keep my day exciting, and keeps me thinking about what could be next.
I like that. It's a good sentiment, I would say. And I guess we've obviously talked about these kinds of topics, but I feel like as a consensus, we can really just tell that it's more AI and market research, not necessarily that one's pitted against the other, because I think, we can do it like really rudimentary, right? Stone tools versus iron tools. Obviously, over time, we're just forging, easier tools for us. It's not necessarily that all of a sudden the hammer is going to start, building buildings themselves. You still need, a human touch to kind of control these kinds of tools and work towards something, collectively. And I really think a lot of people just kind of need to be a little bit more open-minded, I would say, in regards to how we can use these kinds of things. It's really there to just make our lives easier. That's at least my opinion. I don't know if you guys.
I have a contradictory question.
Oh, okay, let's do it.
So, we are talking a lot, and all of us on here, I would say, are fairly progressive, right? We all know how StreamYard works. We all know how to, work our Google Drives somewhat successfully. We're all very programmatic, like, let's say tech forward people, right? We're in the innovation cycle. We're on the maybe early adopter phase. But as I've worked in the years, not only at Question Pro, but companies before this, people who are are a little maybe not as comfortable with technology, or they're more comfortable doing what they know how to do because they know it is correct. Do we think that are they going to get left behind in market research, or are they going to hold market researchers back? Is kind of my thought, because in my head, those people are thinking AI is going to take their job, it's going to take their income, right? Like not everyone's as ethical as Sumer saying, well, you already ran this survey. We're not going to run it for you again. They'd be like, cool, let's run it again and cash that check because they forgot that we ran it the first time. So are there more people out there, I guess, like that maybe we're not talking to in this space, or they're just trying not to be in this space of AI and market research because they think about it as a verse versus a with? Ooh, that was versus a with together.
Nice.
Sumer, do you think they're going to hold back the industry as a whole, or are they going to get left behind?
I'm interested.
I think that the future is, it's not that humans are not going to have jobs, but it's that humans who don't use AI are going to have trouble finding jobs. That's my view. I think it's so prevalent and it's so much democratized now, and it's out there, right? It's not possible, I believe, to undo or live in a world where there's not going to be any AI. That's my view.
Put the
And
genie
I
back
can
in the
talk
bottle.
about it for a long time, but I'm just yeah.
I think you're right. Like even a year ago, I remember we were talking about this, and I said the same thing of, it's not, AI is not going to take your job, but it will take your job if you're not adopting AI and utilizing it in your day-to-day job. So I think that's still my stance, even a year later and knowing everything. A couple interesting like kind of points I want to say is, so the MRII, which is a research institution, they did a study recently where they asked people like, are you worried about AI taking your job? And what's interesting is the older people that they surveyed, they said the people that have been in the game for a long time said no, they're not worried about it. Essentially, that's what they said. The people that were worried about it were more of the younger folks, which there's actually a lot to be said here around the upskilling and just learning there's some sentiment around, hey, will new people come into the workforce, will they know how to do these things, or will they just rely on AI? And if they rely on AI, how do they know the data is correct? And so there's a lot of interesting things in terms of the sentiment around it. But from my experience, the older, if you've been in the workforce for a long time, you've probably seen a lot of technologies come and go, and you're like, oh, there's just another thing, and maybe you're getting ready to retire, so you're like, I don't really care. By the time I need it, it'll be done. That could be a sentiment. But I would say, like, if you're younger out there and you want a career in research, or actually any career. So to back up a step, I was doing a career fair about a month ago, and these are all recent college graduates. Not one of them said anything like, hey, I use AI to make my job easier, or I use AI to become more efficient, which actually I would have loved to hear something like that, because I feel like those are the kind of people I want to hire. They're showing me they're adopting new technology. They're showing me that they're looking for ways to become more efficient, which actually I think is a big benefit. But I still think there's a stigma where if I say I use AI to get things done in my job, especially if it's not like a solution already there, maybe, then you're going to be looked down upon because you're utilizing something else. But I think it's the opposite. At least that's my point.
I was thinking about that because I know that in the last, I think it was the last webinar we had talked about, you had said how, back in the day, market research was like picking up like phone calls and asking people direct questions and, having to go through all these numbers and like doing it in such a very manual process. But, I guess to your credit again, these older generations, they've seen the progress of these technologies. And I guess maybe with the presence of social media, there's a little bit more discourse in terms of people's worries, and people are able to connect and talk way more than they ever did before. So any kind of sentiment can be like an echo chamber, I would say, and everyone just kind of repeating the same thing. But I think in the end, especially from hearing from you guys, I feel a lot more comfortable about using AI in market research. At least myself, I use AI pretty frequently, so
like I had to learn what surveys were in 3 weeks when I had to host a webinar and didn't know what I was doing.
Yep. But yeah, this particular webinar I think was really fun. I really had a lot of new things to learn from you guys, and I really like picking your guys' brains. But yeah, I guess in conclusion, are there any last remaining thoughts that you guys kind of want to like get out there? Anything that kind of popped into your head?
I think we're gonna have to do another one on like AI questions and answers, and like how, like what the future looks like with it, and like what are your concerns about it, because I definitely have concerns about it. I am on team let's use it, but like let's fact check it.
Oh yeah.
And about like I have like we could do a whole question. I want to ask Sumer someday about like, is it going to create like a, I don't know, like an insights, like a loop where like we only get the same insights over and over again, so like nothing ever changes.
Yeah, that's
sorry, that one like
That's
really
a good question.
freaked me out. Or like synthetic data, and how like if you only
Mhm.
build personas of people, does it allow for like surprises? And so then it's like we're just gonna all become like almond bombs off of Instagram, where we're like in tones of brown.
Bad
Sorry.
day bombs.
If you are on Instagram, that like you'll know what I'm talking about. Sorry, guys. I can explain all.
No, but to your point, I think a follow-up show around all that would be interesting, even with like the ethics of it, the pitfalls, the more the problems, and then also like what are those opportunities are. So.
Yeah. If you want to ask, make sure you go to the MRX Unplugged landing page and fill out the form with questions, because we really do look at those.
Mhm.
And we'll bring Sumer back. He doesn't really have a choice. He works for us. Just FYI.
No, I come for the I come for the fun. Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
you would have been on the last one. It got unhinged at the end.
You kind of did.
So I just saw Crystal, and then I was like, I'm in.
That's it. Come on.
There you go. Good co-hosts. Alrighty then. So if there's no final last thoughts, yeah, I think this concludes this episode. I appreciate you guys joining in. I appreciate your guys' time. I would recommend registering for our webinar series, like the actual form on our website, so you guys can be notified when we have the next one coming up. The next one I think is going to be a pretty interesting one. That one's going to be, translating the market research lingo, the corporate talk, all that good stuff. I'm excited for that one because I know I'm for sure going to learn quite a bit from it, because there's a lot of corporate talk that sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm going to Google that later. But yeah, thank you guys, Samir, Dan, and Crystal, for your time. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day for anyone watching and my co-hosts. But yeah, thank you guys so much. Hope you guys have a good weekend, or midweek, I guess, when this comes out.
See y'all later.
See ya.
Bye. Thank you, guys. Cheers. Bye.